Hi folks, back again, Bathrobe Chronicles number 191. I want to talk about a couple of things. One, I've mentioned this fellow before. He has a website. It's scienceblogs.com, just like it sounds, scienceblogs.com/insolence, INSOLENCE, and he is a medical doctor, cancer doctor, surgeon. I believe his specialty is breast cancer, though I could be wrong. And I get quite a bit of my information from him. I did one a few weeks ago about ladies who are having their privates steamed. Well, that came from him. He's had several articles on Dr. Oz. I've mentioned Dr. Oz, I think, twice. And he's got another one here about him. And for those of you who don't know, Oz is actually on the, he's the vice chair of the Department of Surgery at Columbia University. And he's the medical director of the so-called integrative medicine program at New York Presbyterian Hospital. He also has a TV show. And he's the one I sort of made fun of, if you will, that, you know, I saw a clip of when he was on Oprah. That's how he got his start. Speaking of starts, he's the one who was on the show. Now, whether he still does this on his show or not, I don't know. But of course, he appears in scrubs. And I said, you know, the NASCAR guys show up in their driving suits, I think primarily because their sponsors, you know, require it, that they, you know, are advertising if they're out in public and things like that. But anyway, Dr. Oz's wife, excuse me, is a Reiki master. I love it they put that master on the end of it. You just ain't a Reiki person, you're a Reiki master. The only part of his show I've ever seen was a clip on a demonstration that was on the show about Reiki. And this woman came up and did something over this person. Oh yes, my head feels better, and so on and so forth. So this fellow, even though he may well be a skilled surgeon, which I would hope he is, he's doing a lot of operations. Boy, is he eat up with this other stuff. He really is. And I think I've done 2 segments on him. One about the Reiki stuff he's promoting and all the other business, and then one I believe I did when his fellow doctors were coming out and saying, you know, what the heck are you doing out here? Well, ORAC, that's what this fellow, this surgeon goes by, ORAC, he's got a fairly lengthy one here, and he goes into a lot of detail. Evidently, Oz is now having more of these CAM people, you know, complementary alternative medicine people, on his show. And, you know, they're just promoting all this bogus business. And, you know, growing up, I don't know, you know, what your environment was, or home life, or family life, or whatever, but I know that when I was growing up, you know, your parents always told you, you know, if you're in trouble, you go see a policeman, so on and so forth. And you know, doctors help us, and you know, the priest is nice. If we only knew. And the sad part of it is now is people are legitimately, to use that word in its loosest sense, allowed to call themselves a doctor, you know, chiropractors and all these other people, as well as some of these quack medical doctors, and you really don't know what you're going to end up with when you go seek treatment from these people. You really don't. And here's a prime example. This fellow here, this Oz character. And of course, it's almost like Oprah is this, this isn't original, I'm sure, like a mecca, you know, for all these whack jobs who come on there, promote all these bogus so-called therapies or modalities or whatever term they want to use. So I just thought I would mention Oz again because he got a whole lot of press here. And I would encourage you to go to the scienceblogs.com/insolence. Excuse me, if you go to scienceblogs.com, that opens up to a whole lot of folks who are blogging, to use that word there. And I know this old Aurorac guy, I think he does this every day. And I mean, he's got some good stuff on there. You could spend literally hours and hours and hours and hours and hours on his site. Excuse me. Yes, it's coffee. But what I want to talk about now is homeopathy again. I think I've had a couple of segments on this, but wow, I just watched this this 20-minute documentary that was produced by a Canadian company, or excuse me, or station or website or whatever, I'm not sure. And if you go right to the source, if you will, and try to watch the video, you can't, because the Canadian government doesn't allow stuff produced in Canada to be streamed or whatever they call it. In other words, you can't watch it if you're in the U.S. But someone evidently copied the 20-minute documentary and put it on YouTube. And if you look under my favorites, if you like pop up my favorite part, it should be the top one. When I tried it, it ended up being the top one because, of course, it's the latest. And you really need to watch this. You need to watch this whether you believe in this stuff or not. I'm sure that if you are watching this, you're I don't even know how to put any of this mess anymore. I apologize. You most likely got there because you've most likely maybe watched something else that I've done, and for whatever reason you thought it was okay. There's a possibility that you aren't a believer, or you are a believer in all of this stuff out there, and you stumbled across this because of the tags and you ended up here. But regardless of how you ended up here, I really want you to watch this documentary. I mean, this woman does a great job. And she starts off, there are a bunch of skeptics standing outside, I believe, an emergency room, and they're all going to overdose on homeopathic medications. By the way, for those of you who don't know, real briefly, it's been around about 200 years, invented by a German fellow, I believe. And basically there's two concepts, or two things that they all buy in. And one is that like cures like. In other words, if I can take a substance that makes me vomit, then if I start vomiting, I would take the same substance which would cure the vomiting, which of course is absurd. The other thing is the more you dilute something, the stronger it gets. Yes, the more you dilute it, the stronger it gets. They dilute this stuff to the point where there is not a molecule. I don't even know what a molecule is, but there's nothing left in either the water, the alcohol, or whatever the base is. The only thing that is that will show up is sugar, because basically when you're taking it in the pill form, what you're literally taking is a sugar pill. There's no active ingredient. There's no active ingredient, so what you're taking is nothing really. The old joke is the only thing homeopathic medicine, the fluids or liquids or whatever, will do for you is it'll help dehydration. They're worthless, absolutely worthless. Now, here's the interesting part. They were having this big homeopathic shootout, trade show or whatever. And the lady who did the documentary met with the representative of what I understand to be the world's largest producer of homeopathic medicines. It's almost a shame to even call them medicines, but anyway. And you should have heard this woman. It was like the reporter would say, well, gosh, we've had this analyzed, and there's no active ingredient in there. It's nothing. It's just water. And of course, her response is, we need to be looked at differently than everything else. Or, gosh, they just aren't able to measure this with their equipment. And, so on and so forth. And, it's been around for hundreds of years. Obviously, those things are meaningless. Because something has been around for 100 years, or 500 years, or whatever, means absolutely nothing. And of course, from all these people, these cam people, you get the, science hasn't caught up with us yet. Or, it's mysterious the way it works. I mean, all of this crap. And no, our governments are not protecting us, ladies and gentlemen. They truly aren't. They're going to regulate, if you will, homeopaths in Canada. That was my understanding of after watching this. So this lady who did the documentary met with the head dude who is in charge of Canada Health, or whatever it's called. And she said, well, why are you regulating these people? He says, oh, we want to make sure they have the proper education and this. She says, yeah, but the stuff is worthless. It doesn't do anything. And he's saying, well, you know, we have to make sure they have the education and the knowledge. And you're saying to yourself, you know, how can this be? I mean, how can this even be happening? That they're going to regulate something that doesn't work. I mean, really. I don't know. Yeah, I'm getting all ticked off again. But anyway, but you really need to watch this thing. And as I said, I put it under my favorites, and it should be, if you hit that favorite thing, it should be at the top. The interesting thing is, when you try to pin these people down, you know, with their bogus treatments or whatever term you want to use, I'm not saying that some of them don't believe that it works. I'm not saying that. But they have interesting ways of responding to everything. If you've watched any of my recent videos, I'm sure you realize that I was like a mental health worker for almost 20 years. And it's interesting, some of the things that these people do to try to justify or rationalize, or whatever term you want to use, what they're doing, excuse me a second, is no matter what you say, they will come back and have a way to sort of weasel around, for lack of a better word. Anyway, I think I'm running out of time. Let me do part two. Be right back. Pak Andal would say, peace, ladies and gentlemen, peace.